오늘 컨퍼런스 진행을 맡아주실 손재학 국립해양박물관 관장님을 소개하겠습니다. 큰 박수로 환영해 주시기 바랍니다.
네, 여러분 반갑습니다. 어느새 우리 이 컨퍼런스 또 키마 위크가 제3회를 맡게 되었습니다. 올해 제3회 컨퍼런스 좌장을 맡게 되어서 개인적으로 영광으로 생각합니다. 오늘 이 자리에 같이 참석해 주신 연사님들께서는 우리 해양 레저에 대한 전문가이실 뿐만 아니라 유럽 대륙을 대표하고 미주 대륙을 대표하고 또 호주 오시아니아 대륙을 대표하고 아시아 대륙을 대표하고 또 우리나라의 행정을 대표하는 분께서 이 자리에 같이 이 자리를 했습니다. 오늘 아마 좋은 토론이 있을 것이고 토론 말미에 여러분들과 함께하는 또 시간이 있습니다. 그때 여러분들께서 궁금하신 사항은 많이 질문해 주시기 바랍니다. 오늘 컨퍼런스를 통해서 주제 발표하시는 분들뿐만 아니라 참석하신 여러분들께서도 오늘 적극적인 참여가 있으시기를 기대합니다. 첫 번째 발표해 주실 연사는 이름이 콜링 브랜스 글로브, 직책은 호주 마리나 협회 이사입니다. 오늘 발표해 주실 주제는 상업용 재래부두에서 해양 레저 관광 중심지로 탈바꿈한 호주 시드니 달링 하버에 관한 것입니다. 여러분 박수로 발표를 초대해 주시기 바랍니다.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honour to be with you today in Busan. My name is Colin Bransgrove. I'm the Executive Officer of the Marina Industry Association based in Sydney, Australia. And I'd just like to congratulate Mr Moon and his team for an excellent opening for this international conference in Busan. Well done, it was fantastic. I welcome the opportunity to share with you the story of the redevelopment of Sydney Harbour from a working harbour to a recreational boating harbour. I'll just touch on the role of the Marina Industries Association that I represent. It is the association that has been active for the last 15 years as the peak body for marina development in the Asia-Pacific region. We have members in Korea, including ARA Marina, and as a silver sponsor we have CKIPM as a sponsor, and we also have Bellingham Marine as our platinum sponsor, and they're represented here at this conference and the trade show. Sydney Harbour has a long history. The first chapter of three sections, if you like, one being a natural harbour, and this was a period dating white settlement or European settlement. And then we moved into the second period, the working harbour, from the time of white settlement to the late 1980s and early 1990s, when the 2000 Sydney Olympics were run. And then thirdly, we have the period post the Olympic Games in the year 2000, when it's become more clearly a recreation or a leisure harbour. This map is important because it shows the extent of Sydney Harbour with over 300 kilometres of shoreline. Note also the large harbour or bay just 10 kilometres to the south called Botany Bay. This is an important natural attribute for Sydney, having both these harbours. The strategic location of Botany Bay, close to the centre of Sydney, has been a significant factor for Sydney Harbour becoming a recreational boating harbour. The close proximity of Botany Bay has allowed shipping freight terminals to be transferred from Sydney Harbour to Botany Harbour, as well as other harbours to the north and the south of Sydney. But just to spend a couple of minutes looking at the working harbour attributes, the reason why for approximately 200 years, not 2,000, 200 years, the harbour was a very effective working harbour. Sydney Harbour is strategically located on the eastern seaboard of Australia. It is very protected, it has very deep water, it has a very wide entrance, again very deep, and as I said before, over 300 kilometres of shoreline. From the early days of first European settlement, predominantly wool, meat and grain have been exported from Sydney Harbour and manufactured goods imported. Increasing urbanisation around Sydney Harbour led to a growth of problems related to the environment. Problems such as declining water quality were significant and related pollution. Growing tourism put more focus on the value of protecting the natural attributes of the harbour. By 2003, it was formally announced by government that the life of the harbour as a working port would be finished by 2012. To replace the working harbour, the government stated that housing, open space or parks and recreation areas, and iconic buildings for commercial and leisure use were to be the replacement for landside working port infrastructure. And just finally, the final example of transformation is continuing as we speak, and the slide that you can see there is part progress of the final vision for the Barangaroo $6 billion transformation of what was a freight terminal along the waterfront there you can see into a mixed-use development. That development, we had the launch of the parkland to the left. That was officially opened to the residents of Sydney 1 month ago. The iconic highest building will be a world-class casino, and there'll be residential, shopping and other facilities further along the foreshore to the right. And again, extensive community consultation has been very important. So I hope this case study has been of some value to you. As your Minister said, Busan has the potential to be the hub of maritime leisure industries, and I'm sure from what I've seen in my short visit, you have that potential here. Thank you sincerely for this opportunity to share this case study with you today. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Thank you. 두 번째 발표 연사를 소개해 드리겠습니다. 두 번째 연사는 지금 주한 스페인 상공회의소 대표이면서 그 마리나 개발 및 건설 회사인 CKIPM의 기획 임원을 맡고 있는 어니스트 리바스입니다. 이분께서는 항만 개발 경험도 있기 때문에 여러분들 발표를 경청해 주시기 바랍니다.
Hello, I'm really thankful to the organization for inviting me here tonight, this afternoon in fact, and give me the chance to speak all of you. As Colin said, I'm really excited to see all these men and young faces in here, so it means that there are like interest on the marine industry. I will go through the topic of Valencia and how marine industry and leisure events and its marine strategy towards developing this sector, and introducing also the Valencia city as well as the Valencia region. Okay. No. Well, for the one, if you don't know, Valencia is in Spain. It's located in the Mediterranean Sea. Has around a population of 5 million people, and the city of Valencia has around 786,000 person population there. The America's Cup, maybe you don't know it, but it's the oldest sailing race in the world. has been ongoing for the last 150 years. And in Valencia, we were like really happy to hold this event because it really impacts the economy in there, right? So the America's Cup is divided mainly in two competitions, the Louis Vuitton Cup and the America's Match. This is important. Why? This is important because you have a long period where the competition is ongoing on Valencia. So the competition started in 2004 and it finished in 2007. It means that we had an impact on the tourist economy for 3 years for hosting only this event, right? It goes more or less, and before that, in Valencia, before 2004, there were already the teams training in there. So you also have all these industrials working for the ships and refitting and painting and so on. Basically, for the ones are not familiar with this competition, you have the Louis Vuitton Cup, and all the participants has engaged in this competition. The winner goes to the America's Match and is sailing against the winner of the last year of the America's Cup, right? It's a simple formula, but it works because, as I said before, the impact is of long term. It's 3 years competition. If we look at the impacts, how we can divide it in many ways, direct, indirect, and inducted effects of these kind of competitions. But then you also have to look if it's a public organization or administration, it means the government, or if it's the tourism and the mega yachts that impact. You have many things to look at, right? So I will go through a little bit to the major ones, basically at the public administration, it means government, and the tourist and the mega yachts. In here you have the impact of hosting the America's Cup in Valencia. As I said before, the government had a big role to play in this development, right? They invest around 2,000 million euros in reorganizing all the city to host this event. But also, what's more important is that they invest 400 million only in refitting the marina, in reconstructing the marina. As maybe you can see the initial marina on the left side and how it was after the construction on the right side. And probably this is one of the main slides on my speech, or my presentation. The importance of these events combined during 2004 and 2007 increased 30% of the number of tourists directly in Valencia, 1.9 million. That means that a significant international promotion and also a significant economical benefit for the Valencia people and the companies that work in this sector. It's important to know that nowadays we have 9% of the tourists visiting Valencia are directly related to this yachting industry. That brings us to more value creation, as I mentioned before. The nautical has been chosen as a strategic sector, providing seasonal adjustment. What I mean is that during summer you had yachting, and during winter you can repair the yachts. That's really important because it gives you the chance to dynamize the economy in other times. I mean, you create an industrial sector that's really important also. You have the opportunity to give more jobs, right? So that's what we have studies that says that more or less each job in the marina creates 6 jobs in other kind of industries. When I mentioned before painting, I mentioned before like refitting all the sails and the engines, right? I will go shortly to conclusions. Well, when Valencia went through this strategic plan implementation, they directly created 79,000 jobs. And I had a GDP increase of 4.1 during the last 3 years that goes on. That means a GDP increase of 1% annually and something more. Right? Just giving the big numbers, right? Afterwards, if there's any question, I will be glad to answer. And regarding this topic or any other one. And as I mentioned before, we had an increase of 30% on the tourists. That's really, really big. It's 1.9 million in 4 years. Talking about direct impacts, as I mentioned, now we have 140 companies working on the marine industry, but not only related to tourism. We have industrials, and that's really important, right? And the international promotion, the brand, how we brand Valencia, how you brand Spain, that's also a key factor on developing this tourism industry, how other people from all around the world sees you, right? And as I mentioned, gross value added. Quintuplies the effect, the initial effect. It means that in a longer period, these 2,700 million euros that we had of direct impact, it will quintuply in the long term. Well, basically that's all my presentation. Thank you all, and if you have any question, I will be glad to answer afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. 그럼 다음 세 번째 연사를 제가 소개해 드리겠습니다. 미국 서북해양무역협회 부사장이면서 미국 슈퍼요트협회 이사입니다. 그리고 피터 슈라펀 앤 어소시에이트의 회장을 역임하고 있는 피터 슈라펀입니다. 발표하실 내용은 지속적으로 성장하는 미국 보트 산업 및 시장 전망이 되어 있습니다. 박수로 환영해 주시기 바랍니다. 미스터 슈라펀.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Hi, my name is Peter Schrappen. I am from the city of Seattle, Washington, in the United States. Seattle is located in the northwest corner of the U.S., and we have a population of 650,000 people. When you think about the region entirely, though, from the south to the north, it's about 3.6 million people. And maybe you are already familiar with Seattle because of Sleepless in Seattle. That was a popular movie not that long ago. But there are many products every day that you use from my hometown. Maybe it's Amazon, or get your coffee at Starbucks or Microsoft. Those are all based in Seattle, Washington. Where I work at the Northwest Marine Trade Association, the organization that employs me, and I'm also here today representing the U.S. Super Yacht Association, another organization I'm deeply involved with. We have an expression, and it's boating means business. It's not just something that people go out on the weekends and have fun, but there's an entire economy in the United States, in Washington State, my state, that's based on recreational boating. It's a $121 billion industry for the entire country of the United States. In Washington State, that's a $4 billion industry, and boaters spend a lot of money. Last year, they spent $36 billion in buying boats and storing boats and getting boats repainted. It's an entire economy, and they spend a lot on taxes. Lawmakers like to tax them whenever they need more money, which is pretty often, and boaters are seen as easy targets. So boaters in Washington State spend $70 million each year in taxes. Boating employs a lot of people, though. 650,000 people are employed nationally in the United States in boating, and that's 35,000 marine trades. Small businesses, family-run businesses, the average size of the business is 11.5 employees, which I'm sure is true in Australia and Spain as well. And it's a national pastime. They say baseball is a pastime in the United States, but so is boating. 88 million Americans went out boating last year, and that's about 36% of the population. It's a middle-class activity, middle-class to upper-class activity. 95% of U.S. boats are under 26 feet, that's 8 meters. And oftentimes you think boats are huge and they're always in marinas. 92% of all boats are in your driveway, or it's a boat that's towed by your car. And 72% of all boat owners have an income of $100,000 or less. And Americans love to buy American-built boats. 95% of the boats in the United States are made by American companies. And there are 12.1 million registered boats in the United States. And if you compare that to South Korea, which has about 16,000 boats, for every one boat in the United States, that's equivalent to about 26 people. That would be the ratio, 1 to 26 people. And in South Korea, that's one boat per 3,125 people. So you can see the big discrepancy. And we're a big believer in boat shows to drive economic activity. There are 48 major boat shows in the United States. That doesn't count the smaller regional shows. The Fort Lauderdale Boat Show is the world's largest, but the Miami Boat Show, the Seattle Boat Show, where I'm from, is a large one, the Newport Boat Show. Internationally, Metz in Amsterdam's a big show, as is the Monaco Boat Show. And congratulations on Busan now having a boat show. You joined Qatar and Panama in the last couple of years to have boat shows. And interestingly about boat shows is it's not just about the boat, but it's really about the experience. What's happening at boat shows is we're realizing that just can't be talking about the boat, but we've got to create family experiences. So across the country in the United States, there's been a move to making a more of a festival experience, lots like it's happening in Busan. There's a rustling of an alligator that occurs in Atlanta. There's a shark tank that also occurs. And in Seattle, Washington, we've introduced what's called Uncorked, which is a wine night that's targeting younger people. And we've also have a craft beer night. And in the 2 years that we've had it, we've been able to increase our attendance by 40%. Now, I'm not just here to talk about kind of the smaller boat segment of the Seattle Boat Show. I'm also very interested in the super yacht industry, and those are boats over 40 meters. That's a $6 billion industry. There are 4,400 ultra-high net worth individuals in the world, and some of them live in the United States. So we're spending time also thinking about how we can recruit more boats to visit in the U.S. And 21% of the fleet has been built in America, and that's 28,000 direct employees. And excuse me, that was 4,400 super yachts in the world. So how can we also then attract super yachts? So we've got some pretty good ideas there too. But the main problem in Washington State was lawmakers don't care about helping rich people. And so my job as someone who works with lawmakers, who works for businesses, is to tell the story that boating means business, that these are small businesses, and just either it's the small boat or the big boat, it still matters to these families that paint the boats. And in Washington State, we had a really bad law that taxed boats after their 61st day, 10% of the boat's value. And in the recent years, we were able to change that, and that was really targeting lawmakers and using the same language that they use, that boating means business. And we didn't interrupt them. We provided inbound content. We had economic impact studies. We gave them tours of boating factories, and we were able to share with them that boating isn't about the rich person on the water, but it's about the families that make their living on providing the services that go into the $121 billion industry. So it's the same. If you're talking to millennials or you're talking to lawmakers, they both appreciate not being interrupted. They both like language that resonates with them. And this is a great chart here. I mean, $55 million super yacht spends $5 million each year in services. You know, it's $240,000 in insurance, $20,000 in education, $110,000 in provisioning. But lawmakers weren't really understanding that. They weren't seeing these as floating economic stimulus packages. They were just seeing these as rich people. We've been able to change the frame on what we talk about. So at that point, I want to say thank you for listening, and I encourage your questions. And I'm on Twitter if you wanted to send me a message. If you're in Seattle, drop me a line. We'll go out for a beer. And at that point, I want to say thank you.
Thank you very much. Good, wonderful presentation. 오늘 이 컨퍼런스의 초반 세 분의 그 연사의 발표를 저희들이 들었습니다. 연사 두 분이 기다리고 있습니다. 이후에 첫 번째 연사를 소개해드리고자 합니다. 중국 상해시 이 바오산구의 상무위원회 또 바오산구 수변개발위원회 부주임을 맡고 계십니다. 그래서 수변개발과 크루즈 산업 특구 분야를 총괄하고 계시는 부주임이십니다. 샤오 샤완리 박사를 소개해드리면서 샤완리 박사께서는 중국 상해 마리나 개발 및 크루즈 산업 특구 개발 현황 및 추진 방향에 대해서 여러분들께 발표해 드릴 것입니다. 샤완리 박사님을 박수로 환영해 주시기 바랍니다.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, I have to express my gratitude to the organizer for inviting me to attend such a conference. I would like to take the opportunity to introduce some recent development on coastal development in Shanghai. In particular, I will give you the case of recent development on cruise industry in Shanghai. I'm from a northern part of Shanghai, the Baoshan district. Recently, the cruise industry developed very well in Baoshan district. You see, this is our cruise terminal. In fact, in Shanghai, we have 2 cruise ports. We have an old cruise port, and this is a new cruise port in Baoshan. The name is Wusongkou International Cruise Port. Yeah, and it's operated since 2012. Yeah, at the very beginning, we just have 60 ships berth. And last year, we have 235 ships. This year, it's planned to have more than 260 ships berth. Now, this is our layout, and also this is some function area in our cruise terminal. For example, we have a coal area for home port, and also we planned a yard for the yachts. Also, we have an area for ancillary services. Also, we have the area for riverside culture. And also, we have some business or modern fashion building, around the area. Okay, just due to the limited time, just skip some slideshows. Then we integrate some resorts. For example, alongside the river, we call it Huangpu River, Yangtze River. That's also part of Eastern Sea in China. We have 5 cemetery area in riverside region. Then we make integration into tourism system in Baoshan district. And we have some special traveling route and make propaganda for these different routes. Yeah, and since 2012, we experienced many unexpected after the operation of the new cruise port. As I told you, since at the very beginning of 2012, we have the cruise passengers for 300,000 people. Yeah, I'm sorry, maybe the figure chart get you confused, but recent development is that till last year, we have 1 million cruise passengers who come and from Shanghai Wusongkou cruise terminal. Yeah, that does not include another port. I heard that this last year, maybe there will be all above 460. Yeah, 460 ships will berth in Shanghai. Yeah, and in the future, we'll construct phase 2 of Wusongkou Cruise Port. Yeah, because so far our cruise terminal can berth only 2 big vessels. But later, in 2018, we can berth 4 vessels together. And also, we try to transform some old area into the new recreational area. For example, alongside the river, we also have a naval base. We have some fishery market, and we try to transform it. We try to make it as a new part of our cruise terminal. Okay, due to the limit of time, that's all for my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. 마지막 발표하실 분이 한 분 남아 계십니다. 여러분들께서 오늘 또 궁금하신 사항에 대한 답변도 많이 줄 수 있는 분이라고 생각합니다. 해양수산부 해양레저과장 권순욱 과장을 초대하도록 하겠습니다.
네, 안녕하십니까. 해양수산부 해양레저과장입니다. 해양 관광 레저 분야는 아시다시피 상당히 광범위한데요. 저는 제가 맡고 있는 마리나 산업 분야에 관해서 설명을 드리도록 하겠습니다. 그래서 저는 마리나 산업의 현재와 미래를 주제로 발표하고자 합니다. 발표 순서는 국내외 마리나 산업의 동향을 살펴본 다음에 한국 정부의 마리나 산업 육성 정책에 대해서 말씀드리겠습니다. 그럼 먼저 국내외 마리나 산업의 현재 상황입니다. 그 2014년 UN 세계관광기구가 발표한 보고서가 있습니다. 여기에 따르면 그 세계 관광 시장은 약 1조 5천억 달러 규모로 최근 10년간 연평균 4.7% 성장을 해왔습니다. 그런데 그중 아시아 태평양 관광객 비중이 10년 전에 비해 약 8%가 증가한 것으로 분석되었습니다. 그리고 지속적인 관광산업의 팽창과 함께 동북아 지역을 중심으로 한 아시아 태평양 지역의 성장이 두드러지는 특징이었다고 볼 수 있습니다. 그리고 UN 세계관광기구는 이러한 추세가 앞으로도 지속될 것으로 보았으며 2030년경에는 세계 관광 인구가 현재의 11.4억 명에서 18억 명까지 증가할 것으로 전망하였고 아시아 태평양 비중도 계속 커질 것으로 예측하였습니다. 다음 슬라이드를 보시겠습니다. UN 세계관광기구는 이러한 지속적인 관광 산업의 성장 전망과 함께 10가지 미래 트렌드를 함께 내놓았습니다. 이 10가지 트렌드 중에는 전통적인 관광 분야도 있고 새롭게 주목받고 있는 분야도 있는데 이 중 10가지 중에 무려 5가지가 해양 관광과 관련된 것으로 나타났습니다. 아시다시피 전통적으로 인기 있는 해변 휴양이나 해양 스포츠 관광 외에도 크루즈나 해양 생태 관광, 그리고 어촌 체험 등의 다양한 해양 레저 산업이 미래 관광의 주된 트렌드가 될 것으로 전망한 것입니다. 이러한 현재의 관광 산업 성장 추세와 미래 전망을 종합해 본다면 마리나 등 해양 레저 산업이 앞으로 더욱 급성장할 것임을 예상해 볼 수 있겠습니다. 현재 한국 정부는 국민소득 3만 불 시대의 새로운 국민 여가로 마리나가 국민 생활이 되는 것을 미래 비전으로 그리고 있습니다. 그리고 또한 마리나 산업을 육성을 통해서 2020년까지 12,000여 개의 일자리와 1조 원의 경제 효과를 창출한다는 목표도 가지고 있습니다. 그리고 이러한 목표를 달성하기 위해서는 마리나 산업 육성 정책을 크게 3가지 전략으로 구분하여 추진 중에 있습니다. 첫 번째는 마리나 인프라 확충이고 두 번째는 이러한 마리나 관광을 대중화하는 것입니다. 그리고 마지막으로 국내 레저 선박 제조업에도 경쟁력을 강화할 수 있도록 하는 것입니다. 그리고 레저 선박 제조업을 육성하기 위해서는 무엇보다 안정적인 내수 시장이 중요하다고 보고 있습니다. 국내 레저 선박 시장에 대한 좀 정비가 필요하다고 보고 있고요. 과도한 레저 선박에 대한 지방세 과세를 줄이도록 정부 내부적으로 지금 협의를 추진하고 있으며 노후한 중고소 선박이 좀 무분별하게 수입되고 있는 그런 부분들을 좀 완화하기 위해서 안전 검사도 강화해 나갈 계획에 있습니다. 우리나라 정부는 국민소득 3만 불 시대의 핵심 열쇠를 관광 산업이 가지고 있다고 바라보고 있습니다. 그래서 특히 마리나 산업은 많은 일자리 창출을 통해 국민 소비를 촉진하고 그리고 더 많아진 국민들의 관광 소비가 다시 마리나 산업을 성장시키는 미끄럼으로 작용할 수 있다고 보고 있고 이러한 경제의 선순환 구조를 이룰 것으로 지금 기대하고 있습니다. 앞으로도 한국 마리나 산업 육성을 위해 더욱 많은 정책적 지원을 약속드리고 여기 계신 다른 나라의 정책도 적극적으로 좀 본보기로 삼아서 상호 발전할 수 있도록 노력해 나가겠습니다. 예, 경청해 주셔서 감사합니다.
Thank you very much. 네, 수고하셨습니다. 지금부터는 여러분들의 질문을 받아보도록 하겠습니다. 여러분들 질문에 대해서 특정해서 특정 연사에게 질문을 해주셔도 좋고 아니면 일반적으로 그냥 질문을 주시면 저희 패널들이 알아서 준비해서 답변을 해드리는 그런 방식으로 추진을 하고자 합니다. 먼저 플로어에서 혹시 질문해 주신 분 질문을 받도록 하겠습니다. 예, 저쪽에 손 드신 분.
안녕하십니까. 해양대학교 조선공학과 학생입니다. 아까 해양수산부에서 여러 가지 접근성이나 체험전에 대해서 많이 준비하고 있다고 하셨는데 그것보다 일반 시민들이 레저나 보트 산업에 대해서 부자들이 한다는 인식이 있는데 이것을 미국 같은 데서는 빅데이터나 SNS를 통해서 인식 개선을 하고 있다고 하는데 해양수산부에서는 어떤 계획을 가지고 있는지 그게 궁금하고 있습니다.
네, 참 어떻게 보면 좀 중요한 문제이긴 한데 저희도 그러한 부분들이 많이 좀 고민스럽긴 합니다. 그래서 이제 저희가 마리나 산업을 홍보하는 데 있어서도 조금 너무 호화보트나 유아 이런 것들에 대해서는 좀 홍보가 좀 안 되고 이런 부분도 있는데 지금 저희가 이제 통계로만 보면은 이제 저희가 이제 국민 소득 수준이 상당히 높습니다. 이제 높은데 아까도 말씀드렸듯이 소득 대비 우리나라 아직 마리나 산업이 활성화되어 있지 않기 때문에 다른 나라의 어떤 통계하고 비교를 하면서 그런 부분들을 적극적으로 홍보해 나간다면 이제 우리나라도 지금 이 시점에서는 마리나 산업에 대해서 조금 더 투자를 확대해 나가고 또 이 관심을 가져야 할 때가 아니냐 이런 어떤 국민들이 관심을 가질 걸 보고 그런 어떤 통계 위주로 해서 좀 홍보를 하고 그렇게 할 계획을 갖고 있습니다.
예, 방금 이 질문은 사실 많은 사람들이 속으로 조금 우리가 요트를 구입하면 또 너무 좀 돈 많은 사람들의 그런 비즈니스 아닌가 이런 우려들이 있지 않나 하는 그런 것들이 잠재되어 있다고 생각을 합니다. 그 부분에 대해서 조금 전에 우리 미스터 브랜스 글로브 씨가 이제 어릴 때부터 이런 바다 체험을 통해서 그런 것을 좀 해소할 수 있다라고 이야기를 하셨는데 조금 더 이야기를 한번 들어볼까요?
It is a very good question that was asked, and it is still a challenge in developed leisure boating countries, but it is being tackled in some ways. Peter gave examples and some other examples that I could share with you, I guess, in a couple of areas, and I'll talk about marinas firstly. And it was good that the department here is talking about marinas being destinations, so they're not just elitist people for the rich. There's good dining, entertainment, there's lots of weddings at marinas, but also sailing academies. To develop sailing academies at marinas I think is really good to get young people actually boating there, to have hire of boats, easily accessible boats, so that the marina becomes a real vibrant hub, not just for rich people but for the whole community. So I think that is important, but also strategies such as, and one I'll mention in Australia, we have a program for those with disabilities and it's called Sailability. So the richer clubs and people with money provide money to get people with perhaps a physical or a mental disability onto boats, and it helps them, and it creates a lot of good publicity in those communities, so it helps the image of boating. I was in Singapore on Tuesday, and one of the marinas, Keppel Bay Marina, had just run a program where the boat owners invited a local kids from a low socio-economic school nearby to actually come on the boat owner's boat for half a day, and one man with a big super yacht had 50 50 young kids on his boat. He had fun, they had a great time, and there was lots of good publicity about that. So I think there's some of the examples, and I think the school program is really important to work with your government to make sure that you can have primary children introduced to boats, sailing particularly, and work right through to high schools. And it's not elitist, it's available to everyone. And finally, I think an important thing is also low-cost but safe boats. So as well as big boats, in America and most of the mature markets, there's a lot of people without a lot of income that can still go boating, and they're trailable boats, they have boat ramps, and so they can enjoy boating too. So I think there's a few areas that are opportunities here in Korea for you to develop.
Thank you very much. Your keen advice for Korea. 요건과 관련된 이야기는 제가 볼 때 충분히 이 정도 설명으로서 우리가 이해할 수 있을 것 같습니다. 그리고 해양수산부 정책하고도 크게 차이가 없는 것 같습니다. 우리 군순욱 과장님께서 앞으로 이런 부분을 좀 더 참고해 주셔서 예, 오케이, 좋습니다. 우리가 지금 요트 산업에 대한 이야기, 또 요트 산업의 발전에 좀 걸림돌이 되는 부분에 대한 이야기를 우리가 나누었고, 이 부분은 요 정도 다루고 넘어가시면 어떨까 합니다. 예, 혹시 저 질문이 있으신 분은 있으신데, 제가 크루즈에 대한 이야기 조금만 듣고 또 플로어 질문을 받으면 어떨까 합니다. 크루즈는 뭐 지금 부산의 경우에 매년 그 크루즈 입항이 늘어나고 크루즈의 방문객들이 점점 증가하고 있습니다. 또 그런데 오늘 우리 발표를 들으니까 상해의 경우에는 뭐 굉장히 많은 크루즈 입항과 방문객들이 있다고 한답니다. 앞으로 우리 이 상해와 부산항의 그 크루즈 연계성을 어떻게 더 발전시킬 수 있는지에 대해서 우리 이 닥터 시오니안 리 씨에게 한번 여쭤봤으면 합니다. Dr. Sionian Lee, I'd like to ask you the advice to increase the cruise network between Shanghai and Busan. Okay.
We have several ways to make further collaboration. First, as to the infrastructure construction, I think there is no more collaboration between China and Korea, and also among China, Korea, and Japan, because most of our cruise voyages go to Japan and Korea. Yeah, normally it's not just only one destination. So I heard that the biggest cruise ships is 250,000 Oceans. It's called Oceans, but because there is no such a port in Japan, they do not have such a deep water, such a large cruise terminal port in Japan. So the Oceans cannot enter into Asian markets. So that's one point of my view. The first is the collaboration between the infrastructure construction. And secondly, I think between China and Korea, we can have some mutual propaganda and mutual propulsion for our inland resort resources. Yeah. Because if you let the passengers or tourists know more about Korea, know more about Busan before they come, I think they will have more interest. Yeah, I can give you an example. Recently, the first voyage of Quantum Oceans, yeah, the original destination is to Japan, but due to the climate, due to typhoon, the RCCL changed it to Korea. And it was practiced by many Chinese tourists. Yeah, but I think in my view, when I arrived at Busan, I think it's a very attracting city. So I think we have to make mutual efforts to promote. And third, my third point of view is that the cities and the districts can have more collaboration. For example, we can formulate some uniform rules to promote the trade facilitation. For example, the food supplies to the cruise ships, yeah, there are different regulations and rules between China and Korea. So we hope later we can have more uniform the rules to make the goods supply to cruise ships more convenient. Yeah, that's my view. Thank you.
Thank you very much. 요 주제와 관련해서 혹시 플로어에서 크루즈에 대해서 뭐 질문이 있으면 해주시고 아니면 우리가 아까 요트와 연결해서 마리나에 대해서 우리가 인프라스트럭처 부분을 조금 더 다루어 볼까 합니다. 혹시 마리나와 관련해서 혹시나 또 좀 질문이 있으신 분 계시면 질문을 해 주시기 바랍니다. 저쪽 오른쪽 부분.
네, 반갑습니다. 저는 한국해양대학교 다니는 학생인데 저 같은 경우는 우리나라의 그 어부들이랑 이렇게 기반 시설을 만드는 과정에서 많은 문제가 생기는 걸로 알고 있는데 이런 문제는 앞으로 어떻게 해결할 예정인지 그리고 외국에는 이런 사례가 없었는지 그런 거에 대해서 좀 알고 싶습니다.
In terms of the transformation, it is very important in our case study that the citizens are very much part of the process, and I think Sydney Harbour or Sydney government has been very good at taking the citizens, lots of consultation, lots of money devoted to the change from working harbour to recreational harbour. Specifically, if your question was about fishing industry, which I think partly may have been, in Australia the fishing industry has increasingly been under pressure and there is less commercial free catch fishing, more fish farming. And part of the transformation in many areas has been that those traditional fish harbours have become slowly mixed use, commercial. There might be tour boats for day activities, leisure activities, and things like fishermen's co-ops have become more cafes and dining precincts. And the example I gave with the video, part of that transformation is changing the Sydney fish market into a world-class tourism attraction. So as the fishing industry changes, it is very important, certainly, to accommodate the needs of the fishing industry.
Thank you very much. Mr. Torres, do you have any experience in Spain, Valencia?
Well, first of all, have to say that in Spain we also had a lot of issues related to the marina construction. Not only because of the taxes and what we invest on it, that's a lot, also because of the visual impact and the environmental impact that creates. No? So you are trying to somehow conjugate both point of view. As Mr. Collins said, it's really important to involucrate each one of the parts since the very beginning. In fact, in my hometown we had the development for a new marina and it got cut because the neighbors didn't want to. They wanted everything how it was. They didn't want to change, right? It's hard sometimes to arrive to this agreement, and when you have two parts or three parts, because you have the government, the investors, and of course the citizens that they're in, also the people who is working there, right? So you have these four main actors that you have to combine them together. So from that, only have to say like patience, negotiation, spend time on involving those people as soon as earlier, because sometimes people just get mad because they had nothing to say in the process, and they find out that everything is already solved, everything is already finished, signed, and they say, oh, well, now we stop everything, right? Thank you.
Thank you very much. 우리가 그동안 그 해양의 개발과 또 보존, 기존 산업에 대한 보호, 이런 부분들이 조화롭게 이루어져야 하는 것은 틀림이 없는 사실입니다. 오늘 이 컨퍼런스를 마무리하기 전에 사실 뭐 조금 이 주제를 이게 제가 좌장으로서 다루어도 될까 하는 좀 조심스러운 생각이 있습니다만은 그래도 오늘 귀한 분들을 모셨기 때문에 우리 이 북항 재개발과 관련해서 만약 우리 북항에 카지노가 들어온다면 과연 이게 북한에 그 시너지를 줄 것인지 아니면 그런 부분에 좀 더 우리가 조심해야 될 것인지 이전에 이미 이 달링 하버 개발에 경험이 있는 그 경험에 비추어서 한번 고견 한번 들어봤으면 합니다. 여러분 생각 어떠세요? 예, 그래요. 예.
It does have similarities with the slide that I showed in Sydney Harbour at the moment with the Barangaroo $6 billion development, where a casino is very prominent, and there was a lot of debate about that in the community, and part of the way that it developed and got up eventually, it's not physically up but it is being built, there was a big trade-off in terms of open space for the community, and as I said, just launched a month ago was a lovely public park at the head of the furthest point of Darling Harbour. So it was something for the gamblers, for the rich, but it had to be iconic in terms of design and world class, which was important, but also there was an offset, something given back to all people, and that was a beautiful harbourfront water access, a beautiful park, and there was also other cultural activities and developments to happen. So I think it is a relevant example to here in Busan. It's not perfect, but it's a good one to look at. And certainly Darling Harbour has been successful, particularly because all Sydney-siders and a lot of international tourists go there because there's so many dining, eating options. There's a convention centre, and what's working really well now in the marina is that there's short stays, so people can bring their boat in, go for dinner or for lunch for 2 or 3 hours, hop on their boat and then go off. So it's like a short-term car park in the harbour, and people are seeing the boating happening, and it is working well.
제가 제 질문에 대한 답을 내리기는 어렵고 여러분들께서 또 우리 국민들께서 잘 판단하실 것이라고 생각되고요. 오늘 우리 연사들께서 이 도전과 기회 또 챌린지라는 강조를 많이 해 주셨습니다. 우리가 기회를 보고 도전해 나가고 그 도전하는 것도 기존의 사고보다는 혁신적 사고로 도전하는 그런 우리가 되기를 바라면서 오늘 그 컨퍼런스에 참여하신 연사분들과 또 끝까지 경청해 주신 여러분들께 정말로 고맙다는 말씀을 드립니다. 다시 한번 오늘 발표해 주신 연사분들께 고맙다는 박수 한번 주시기 바랍니다. Thank you.